the league designer of Marvel Snap, Glenn Jones, I know when Broad is like the face of the game, but right now the dude that is really managing the gameplay of the game, the creating cards, balancing the game, monitoring everything that has to do with gameplay is Glenn Jones. Ben Broad is on doing another shed, but I don't know, like overseeing everything. But the dude that is really working all of this shed is Glenn Jones. And since today we had a balance patch, he said this. This Marvelous Snap balance update was a tough one with a lot of variables. And I know the nature of patch notch means they won't answer all your questions or concerns. To that end, I'll answer select queries about the balance changes from today's replies to this thread. So people asking some stuff about the today's balance patch, and he answered them in here. He says, since it's coming up a lot, there's only been one strong deck using Leech. Oh, people ask about Leech a lot then. So people asking, what about Leech? What about Leech? Because there was not a Leech nerf. So he's saying this, there's only been one strong deck using Leech, and nerfs to Thanos decks weaken him too. One strong deck, the Thanos deck. I could see that being true, but I can also see that not being true, because Leech is used on the ramp deck. That is really good deck. That is a really good deck when you play Leech on turn 4. And it is also used on the Galactus deck, where you also play Leech on turn 4. So the Thanos deck was not the only Leech deck. Of course, it was the oppressive, unfun deck to face, but it is not the only one. Our time to implement behavior VFX changes is also limited. We decide to take more time, find a change we liked and could make, then see if it was warranted. What does this has to do with Leech? I am not sure if I understood that part. Also popular, why nerf Quinjet versus making stones start in the deck? Oh, we talk about this in the when we review the patch, and I agree with that change, but let's see what he says. The stones simply don't start in the deck. We believe adding niche exceptions to otherwise intuitive scenarios is the wrong way to add complexity. On its own, Quinjet is also a meaningful future balance risk. I agree with this. I agree with this. So let's see what other questions and answers there are. I understand that there are a lot of ways to nerf Shuri because of how she's designed, but what went into nerfing Red Skull so gently? I was honestly expecting something dramatic like a 512 with the same +2 text. Well, at 512 with +2, I think he's likely unplayable without Shuri, and he deserves to leave. I do think there's a chance we need to move him down again, which is fortunately easy enough to do that I didn't mind starting soft. I agree with this. I don't know why the dude is asking for such a big change, brother. Why do you want to kill Red Skull? Red Skull is cool, brother. If I was sure of that, he'd be 512 and +1 already, but time will tell. Okay. I appreciate the transparency on balance decision. Was there any consideration to nerf Sunspot? Brother Jared, you are my man. I always talk about Sunspot being OP. Let's see what they say. The most played one drop in the game by far. And he says, we were already hitting She-Hulk. Kitty Pryde is coming soon as a challenger. The patch was already heavily taxing our design resources, and we aren't sure how this metagame will land, so I deprioritizing. But he was on the watch list. Okay, I am fine with this. I am fine with them knowing that Sunspot is good. I am fine that he's acknowledging that Sunspot is good. So if Sunspot continues to be a problem, we might see a nerf to Sunspot, which I would agree with, because if you guys know me and watch my content, I talk about Sunspot being OP a lot. The OPness of Sunspot is underrated. Exactly. Exactly. Why was certain the number you chose for Red Skull outside of Shuri? It's actually above to the card, right? Yes, and I agree with that. Red Skull is fucking cool. I guess it's always in charm range now too. Just curious on the thought behind it. We strongly consider 12, but decided to start with 13 out of concern 12 would be too hard a hit from our internal player who knew Shuri best. 13-12 is a change we can make via hotfix if it proves too light. Okay, I agree with this. I agree with this. How much does Mr. Negative actually impact how you nerf both or design cards? If it is as much as I expect, what does the game gain from its existence that justifies keeping it in the game? Well, we keep it in the game because it's a rather exciting card to play with and build around. I agree with that sentiment. Fun is always more important than balance. Yes, of course, balance sometimes gets in the way of fun, like this season proved with Thanos and Shuri. But if you can manage to not make things too oppressive, fun is always the priority. And Mr. Negative is fucking fun. You have to agree with that. I would say the impact is very small. I haven't weakened a design based on its interaction with Mr. Negative since I was hired 3 months ago. And I buffed several. Nice. This is cool to know. This is cool to know. Curious on the design philosophy or data behind changing Red Skull and not Shuri. Red Skull, okay, another question like this. Sauron and Zero were both a strong performers, so the splash damage was intentional. Shuri doesn't have easy balance knobs. The available ones always ruining the card, which we want to avoid. We're testing this approach to her deck and taking more time on Shuri internally. Brother, I know you guys sometimes wanna be contrarians. I do too, you guys know me. I am really contrarian to second dinner's decisions a lot of times. But this thing he's saying in here is on point, brother. This shit is on point, my dude. Why not buffs to cards that are severely underutilized, like Crystal, Murdoch, etc.? I agree with this question. This is a good fucking question. And they say we have plans to strengthen a number of underplayed cards in the future. Stay tuned. No EDA on that, by the way. Right now there is no EDA, but at least they acknowledge that this is on the radar, and that is fucking cool. We at least have something, you know. We have something. Not a question. Correct me if I am wrong, but the aim is to build your deck strategically with the cards you get to counter those you may find, even if they are stronger. That's the beauty of this game since day one. These nerfs are killing it, just like you kill Leader. And yes, motherfucker, I am glad they killed Leader. Stay dead, motherfucker. The worst fucking card this game has ever seen. I hated the fucking Leader before he was prevalent. I hated the Leader before the global launch of the game. I hated the Leader since I saw him for the first time. So nothing had made me happier than seeing that motherfucker die. And I hope he never comes back. RIP Bozo. The playing field doesn't need to be level, but it does need to be reasonable. Among our 20 most popular decks, Thanos' worst matchup was 48% versus Zera. His next worst, 54% versus Shuri. Her only bad matchup, though some are close. That is an unreasonable playing field. I don't know how this answered the shit, but okay. I am cool with the reply. She had a lot of 50-52% matchup before and during Thanos era, which is a reasonable margin that we hope decks are able to adapt to catch. But this is something I'll be monitoring daily myself. Brother, the dude seems like he's on top of the game, right? At least on the way he speaks. So could we say that patches take a long time because of the tech limitations, or there is also a philosophy of waiting? Because I see that he monitors the game, but apparently he takes a long time to take a decision because he wants to look at the data and all of that. So maybe it is both things. Maybe he's on top of the game, but at the same time he thinks a lot to push a decision. He wants to be sure of what he's doing, so he takes a long time. And then after that, the text limitation makes it take a long more time. And that is why we have all these spaces where there is not balance changes. I got you to say penis. Oh, with the penis of Sunspot. Oh, brother, there is no worry. Penis, 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 penis. I didn't my leader. All the decks I play naturally beat leader. Oh, brother, I hated the fucking leader. It was not fun at all. Leader, the most rage-inducing card in Marvel Snap history. You mean Leech isn't worse? Oh, Leech is rage-inducing, but the fucking leader was worse, brother. In my opinion, fucking leader is worse. I hated the fucking leader. Also, an Aero question. In the patch notes, it said you wanted it to still keep Galactus in check, but now Galactus can play a zero-cost last to bypass it. Oh, brother, who the fuck is going to do that? Nobody's going to do that shit. She-Hulk combo decks can still output consistent high power, which you no longer can properly mitigate. Is this intended? This weekend's Aero versus Galactus, but finding a Wasp or Yellow Jacket isn't a trivial hoop, nor is putting them in the deck. Exactly. You are not going to build a Galactus deck and just say, oh, I am going to place a Wasp in here because I need to play Wasp in case they play Aero. Nobody's going to do that shit. Aside that you have to align that having the card in the moment and play them at the same time, nobody's going to do that, motherfucker. That's part of why we weakened She-Hulk. We prefer Aero be more like Big Polaris Juggernaut than Diet Leader, and thus make room for other cards. Again, this answer is on point. Brother, I am not dick riding the dude, but this is an answer that is on point. I like this answer. What can I tell you? Feels like you have attacked Thanos too much and Shuri not enough. You could say that, but let's see what happens. Thanos has been hit on 3 fronts: his card, Stones, and Quinjet. Why didn't you make a smaller adjustment to that deck and see the impact? I genuinely think his changes to Quinjet are more than enough. You're right, and this was a conscious decision. We can attack Shuri again via hotfix changes to numbers, while Thanos is much more complex to adjust. I agree with that too, because Thanos is not something you adjust only with numbers. You have to adjust the abilities of the stones. For example, we consider Red Skull to 512, but that starting lighted out of concern, it might be too harsh. Okay. Why is Lockjaw unchanged? Unless there is a fundamental change in the side philosophy, there will continue to be cards at cost 0 that will continue to break Lockjaw. This is a good question. Lockjaw is on our watch list, but his history as a fun and reasonable card before Thanos earthing a reprieve this time. We do have a change we like for him prepared if we need one. We generally don't expect to make many more cards at cost 0. They're always risky. Okay, again, I like this question, this answer, because yes, Lockjaw might be a problem, but at the same time you have to agree that Lockjaw is one of the most fun and original cards in the game. So we don't want to see the good boy die completely, right? But if it becomes a problem, it might need to happen. But I am fine that they didn't do it right now. And yes, some people think that the biggest problem wasn't Thanos or the Stones or Leech or any of that, but it was Lockjaw. And I can see that being true. But at the same time, brother, Lockjaw is a fun card. I like Lockjaw. I know that he can be a problem, but he's a cool card, brother. So I agree with this perspective to see what happens in the future. Exactly, Raptor. Lockjaw, good dog. Cosmo, bad dog. I hate Cosmo, brother. But the Cosmo that is going to appear on the Guardians of the Galaxy is fucking cute, brother. That is a cute fucking dog, my dude. Why do you guys always nerf cards that are like supporters to cards that are the problem and don't nerf the cards itself? Like Shuri is really strong, so you nerf She-Hulk and Red Skull, but not Shuri. The stones are strong, so you nerf Quinjet, not the stones. Our approach varies depending on the situation. Shuri doesn't have easy balance knobs, that is true. The available ones all risk ruining the card, which we want to avoid, that is true. Letting Quinjet continue reducing stones to 0 wasn't a viable option, and this is the way we were willing to fix that. Again, I agree with this. This didn't answer the question per se, because he's justifying why they did it this way. But he didn't answer why. It is implied, but it is not directly answered why they prefer this approach, you know. I know Leech is going to be a big question asked. We read already this question. Using to target the problem cards by hurting other decks. Queen Jet being the most obvious. Why not just make the stones part of the deck? He answered this. I've seen this suggestion, but opposite. It complicates understanding what Queen Jet and similar cards affect. It's technologically weird and doesn't match intuition. I avoid adding complexity this way. I agree. Queen Jet change was so good. Free resources is always problematic in my opinion. I said this to you guys. And weird section text just more is the game flow. Agree. Red Skull is kind of above, don't you think? It's how I initially nerfed the card in my mind, but thought it might be a small buff overall in Shuri. I think Red Skull on his own is stronger now, yes, but his interaction with Shuri and Taskmaster are meaningfully weaker, we hope. It is true. Red Skull is a relatively healthy card to be strong. It's a Shuri deck itself we want to weaken, and if we miss, we'll come at it again. Brother, not big riding, but this is a good answer. I like it. Apologies because I know there's a lot of Leech questions, but has the team considered altering the effect to last just one turn? The turn 60 throat flavor isn't lost, but playing against it won't feel as bad when your hand is bricked when facing against it early. This is amongst the changes we consider, but we won't be enacting it, at least not anytime soon. In addition to needing VFX adjustments, the functionality has many non-intuitive card interactions, and we didn't even find a template we liked. Wow, so they aren't even sure what to do with Leech if Leech continues to be a problem. Now I didn't like this one. This is one answer I didn't like. But you need to have something prepared for Leech if Leech continues to be a problem. Why? Because Leech is not a fun card to face. Leech is not fun, brother. People hate the Leech. They don't like playing the game just because Leech exists. So you have to address this if Leech continues to be a problem. So you have to have a change in store for him, brother. Leader copying all the swarms this card deck plays on the final turn, and not what Dracula and Morbius gains power from isn't winning for the leader player. But against other decks that are slower, leader is much worse for them. Brother, the leader was fucking bullshit. I hated the leader. There was the majority of decks in that meta game lost to the leader, and everyone was playing the leader. Even Deathwave decks were playing the leader, because at that point you were a fucking idiot if you didn't play the leader, because it was the best fucking card in the game. And the real problem wasn't just that. There is always going to be the strongest card, right? But the problem is that it is not fun. The leader was not fun to play against. And having to always think they are going to play the leader was fucking bullshit. Did you consider how potentially rampant Galactus is going to be now that its one major counter is going to be exorcised in most decks? Brother, but she is still good against Galactus because they only play one card on the Galactus turn. Similarly for Shuri decks where Taskmaster is always placed first before a 1-drop or 6, meaning Aero will not be effective there either. We consider both of these things and we will be paying close attention to the metagame from here. What else could it say, brother? For Aero, why not move cards in order instead of just the last one? You can still play around that effect. I think her original ability, while quite strong and needed some adjusting, was needed for some decks. The current nerf feels a bit too harsh. I've seen this suggestion, but it mostly adds a lot of complexity to playing with and against the card without actually changing her much, which isn't how I approach designing or balancing snap cards. I agree with this. And moving them in the order, what does it matter? That isn't a fucking nerf, brother. That isn't a nerf. How difficult is it becoming to manage a balanced patch versus designing new cards for the game? Are there different teams for this? Lastly, how long does a new card design spend in the testing cycle before it's considered ready? I'm sure it varies by person, but I find designing new cards easy, so balance is harder. Snap's design team manages both balance and new content. How long a card take varies a lot, but we aim to ensure each card has 6 weeks to design plus 2 to find balance. Design question: since you are not buffing the decks which are also hit by the nerf, doesn't that mean the gap never really closes and the updates just create another small mountain top of viable decks? There is some splash damage for sure, but where that is most significant, such as She-Hulk and Aero forcing people to vary their choices is what we want. Queen Jet is the exception. We're sad about its other decks getting hit, but it's for the best. I like this answer, by the way. This is the correct way to look at it, brother. Were there any other changes you consider for Aero? It's hard when a card with a unique mechanic is the mechanic itself radically altered. I'm concerned, like leader, Aero has gone from a good card to a more niche tech against certain plays. I did, and if she stops fulfilling the role we need her to, we'll certainly revisit the design again. That is a good answer, of course. What else can he say, brother? Aero is my favorite card in the game, and this change is a drastic change to her identity. Why did you make the change decision you did? Aero was just so generically strong that it limits the range of 5 cost and even 6 cost cards that players were considering viable. That is true. Bringing Aero down is also healthier than bringing everything else up because it keeps the design space wider for future content. Another good answer, my brother. Don't see anyone else pointing out the obvious. Why did you buff Red Skull? Accounting for worst case, he's now effectively a net 5'9" instead of a net 5'7". You realize this actually makes Shuri decks better, right? The math is undisputable here. He's better in many cases, as stated in the patch notes. He's specifically weaker with Taskmaster and some Shuri states, as well as more attackable by a couple large cards. It is a soft change that is easy for us to tune firmer. I agree with the change. I have already stated it, so let's continue to see. Hey Glenn, I think overall the patch was a huge step in the right direction. You guys did a great job, but I do think the elephant in the room is Leech. Here, we already read the Leech stuff. Did you know when coming into second dinner you will be in the spotlight answering questions from the Rabbit fans? Do you enjoy this part of the job, or does it get overwhelming and or bothersome? I make the decision to make myself more public and available with second dinner support. It's something some other devs I admire do. I have thick skin and a simple policy of blocking being rude or communicating in bad faith, so it's not difficult aside from the sheer volume. Good to know that. Is there a reason you guys are so hesitant to buff cards? I generally prefer to include some buffs with any nerfs, but the turbulent nature of the Sub 1 Thanos metagames led me to reduce the variables at play to improve how we gather data. We also have new plans for the building buffs in future updates, so stay tuned. So this is what I told you guys earlier. To improve how we gather data. So he doesn't want to buff cards yet because he wants to see how stuff evolves. And yes, that might be a good approach, but at the same time, it takes a long time to change some stuff. And why was so hard to buff some stuff in this patch? It wasn't hard, brother. It wasn't hard. You just didn't want to do it. Not exactly regarding the nerf, but as someone who just completed Series 3 today, I'm 60k tokens behind of where I would be if I was getting average 400 tokens instead of the 100 I did. Are we getting tokens based on our collection level? Sorry, I'm not familiar enough with all these systems to answer questions of this topic. We are researching them, and what we do with that today. Also, this confirms what we said earlier. The people that are working on the gameplay don't know shit about the monetization because that is another department. And of course, that was obvious, but we didn't know how disconnected they were. And apparently, they are really disconnected when this dude doesn't know how the shit even works. Or probably he knows, but he doesn't want to talk about it because that topic is stupid, and maybe he even doesn't like it, and he's the same as us, tolerating the bullshit monetization because the game is cool. So if another toxic meta develops now, then no buff will be made next patch. That was a pretty shitty answer, honestly. Yes, we need buffs with the nerfs because how hard can it be? It is the same I always tell you guys. You don't need data and confirmation to know that Quake and Crystal suck. You don't need data for that shit. Just buff them, motherfucker. Buff them and that's it. I didn't see any notes about Leech and where's the boss? Another person asking for the boss. And it is starting to be the same shit. So I believe we are done here, boys. I believe we are done here. Potential counter design to cards like Aero and Magneto. Cards you control at this location cannot be moved. Is that too hard a counter to too many locations and other creatures? I don't think that's too hard a counter, but it lacks an aspirational element that makes it exciting to play with. The trick to take cards is usually to combine a payoff with the protection. And that is true. Have you personally been following tournament meta so far? This is a good question. I believe you mentioned before that you guys only balance for ranked and not yet for battle mode. But what happens if tournament play differs sharply from what is seen on ladder? We're not monitoring tournaments right now other than via streams and content, but we will be paying plenty of attention to Conquest once that goes live. So apparently they don't care if there is a competitive scene to the game, brother. They just care about people spending money on the shit, and that's it. Wondering if there is any meaningful goal to improve the move deck, as it still feels the weakest of the main mechanics. Move's tricky, it's difficult to play with and against, but very fun. We don't want to risk constant movement becoming the expected snap experience. That said, I think move fans have plenty to look forward to this year. Oh, that is fucking cool. There is a card that I want to see in the game, that is Annihilus. It was data mined, but we don't know if it will release like that. And when you play Annihilus, all of your cards move randomly in the board, and that is a fucking good, cool card, brother. That is a cool card. I want to see that shit.